then I was already not host.
Roger that. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thursday, June 6th edition of the SIG Network meeting. As always, this meeting is governed by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, effectively boiling down to be nice to one another. So please do be nice to one another. We have quite a few people on the meeting today. It is an open agenda. There is stuff on the agenda already. If you'd like to add anything, please feel free to put it at the bottom of the current agenda. And if we can get to it, we will. If not, we can roll it over to the next meeting. Yeah, so pretty much we're going to start with a little bit of triage. We have a couple of people here today that have mentioned potentially not wanting to use up the whole hour if we don't need it. So we'll do a little bit of triage and then get to the agenda. I'll start sharing my screen. And host disabled attendee. I need privileges, please, to share. Co-host me, Tim.
You're good.
All right, cool. All right. Does that look right to everybody?
Yes, sir.
All right, so we'll just do a little bit of triage, which we'll probably just focus on the newest stuff to save some time, and maybe stuff that is not assigned. Okay, we got two things we can take a look at real quick. All right, regarding the issue of certificate expiration when accessing links with HTTPS and Kubernetes through pod access. This was 2 weeks ago from a username in all numbers. It's interesting. Oh, I remember this one. We talked about this one last time. Adrian, did you have any updates on this one or any thoughts?
Uh, no, other than I think I didn't understand the problem. If you look at the image, I think they're saying that what is the title of this thing?
Regarding the issue of certificate expiration when accessing links with HTTPS through Kubernetes pod access.
Right. So maybe it's somewhere in the description. There, the first sentence after the image. The HTTPS certificate will expire at the same time. I'm not too sure what they're referring to, but the certificate that they're showing there is 3 months after it got generated.
Indeed.
But when was this curl run?
I see.
Does this really have?
Go ahead.
This seems mostly unrelated to Kubernetes/Kubernetes. I'm trying to find they're talking about Ingress Nginx here.
Indeed.
Yeah, and cert manager, and it's hard to say what the problem is, and I don't think it's SIG network related.
Yeah, I would say it's at least
he doesn't
it's
even say
not
Nginx ingress. He says run an Nginx container curl HTTPS link. So I'm not.
No, but he does.
I need more breadcrumbs to get home on this one. I don't know about y'all, but
so he does say Ingress Nginx.
He does say it.
But it's the description of the problem.
Okay.
It seems as though the certificate is expiring at the moment that they're running the curl. I think that's what they're saying.
Yeah, they're saying, you see this line here. They're saying that they're seeing this SSL certificate has expired, and that's what.
Oh, I see.
That's what they're like. That's the symptom.
It seems like maybe this should be redirected to cert manager. I mean, I don't.
I mean, is there system like? I mean, it expired in 2023. Did they?
Yeah.
If they just curled it, then it should be expired.
More.
What?
Yeah, it's like 8 months old.
Yeah, like it's not 2023, right? I didn't miss anything. It's 2024, right? Yeah, so it is expired. Okay, so we need to mention that. I'm happy to mention that. So we don't have to spend a lot of time on this. I'll join you on this one a little bit, Adrian, and see if we can.
Isn't -k in curl ignore certificate? Is that true?
Yeah, -k will. That's what he's doing, and that's why he's getting an HTTP response, because he's adding -k to get past the certificate problem. But
so
I'd have to look at this a little harder. But it looks like the problem is like he's just got an old certificate that is actually expired. from what I can tell. He's saying it expires at the moment, but it is not 2023. So I'll follow up on that one, and it might just be a simple misunderstanding.
What's interesting is you're right. You've either got an old certificate or there's some weird virtualization of us. Like, is it? I don't know. I can't tell what it's doing. Sorry.
That's okay. No, I mean, we'll just start with the easiest thing. Maybe he just forgot. Like, it happens, right? You're looking at 2023 and you're like, it's still 2023. Like, that can happen. So maybe it's just that simple. And we'll work from there and see if it actually is something real. But I'll help out with that one.
It looks like a correct behavior.
Yeah. It could be that simple. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt. But all right, I'll assign myself to this one and work on that a little bit and just talk to them. Ta-da. All right, regarding adding an interface to retrieve the net namespace of a pod object, I want to extend I think I've read this one. I want to extend the gRPC interface in kubelet that retrieves pod resources to include an interface for obtaining the pod net NS using pod UID. This way, it would be possible to retrieve a pod object and perform operations on its namespace after querying it. So he wants to look at the pod, and then he wants to be able to go do stuff on its namespace. Is this a good idea? Are there better options? Antonio has responded with NRI, which has been hot topic lately.
But why is it? Go ahead, Antonio.
Yeah, everybody wants to get the network namespace in the kubelet, right? And we end in this isolation problem, right? That we keep repeating. If you start to recall these details, so device plugins on purpose, as far as I know, on purpose, they don't want to share this information to not make the plugins dependent on this. So I don't know. They can get this information from several places.
Yeah, I mean, it's also not SIG network, right? This is clearly coming out of the container runtime. If there is a network namespace, then the CRI would know about it.
Yeah.
But there's not necessarily one, right? Like CRI doesn't require that you use a network namespace. It's just what everybody does, but it's not a requirement.
Roger.
It's how it's built, right? In Windows doesn't work.
All right, I can answer this one. I mean, I will just redirect back to CRI. Is that fair?
Sounds good. Assign you to it?
Sure.
There was one proposal from SAP, I don't know, and Mike Brown that they wanted maybe share this information back to the kubelet. So I know that they had some kind of proposal on doing that. But,
okay.
It's very low level detail.
It feels like you want to dig in under implementation.
Yeah, that's the slippery slope, right?
Okay. Roger that. Thank you, Tim. All right.
Okay.
And that's all we'll do for triage today. We're at 15 minutes.
Okay.
Oh, we already did this. So we just right past mine. I put this on here just as a reminder, but Damien, I pinged him and he came in and cut a new release of kubedns for us. So we're all set there. So we can go straight to Dan's. Dan,
Sorry,
you want to talk about?
Before I hand it to Dan, can I also just throw one word out about KEPs? We've got approximately 2 days left for KEPs to be supposedly in the PRR queue and 9 days left for KEPs to be approved and PRR'd. If you have a KEP that needs touching, whether that is applying the opted-in label on the issue or getting approval on an update for the YAML or whatever you need to make sure that all the check boxes are done. The release team has been going through all the KEP issues and putting the little, I think it's five points of checkpoints. If all 5 of your checks are not checked, figure out what we need and let me know ASAP. Or Dan or Antonio.
Roger that. Dan, you want to go ahead and talk about the health check node ports?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like a call for votes, I guess. We had this thing with dual stack load balancers and the health check node ports where it was just never really well defined exactly how it's going to work. And fixing it requires us to decide that. So I think what we want to say is that dual stack load balancers only have a single health check node port, which reports on the health of both the IPv4 and IPv6 endpoints. and is presumably available via either IPv4 or IPv6. No load balancers actually or no, okay. That seems like it makes most sense. The thing is that like theoretically you could have a service that had IPv4 only endpoints on some nodes or IPv6 only endpoints on some nodes, and then therefore you would theoretically need different health for them. And Antonio sort of convinced me that like, yeah, we just don't want to support that. So
I don't want to make that support, right? We have, because that doesn't work. I mean, that only works if you put a lot of hand holding and on the application. So it's impossible that you need to know your application is going to be single stack for one or the other IP family for scheduling.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you will start having someone say that I want to have nodes. Some are v4 and some are v6 and have everything to work, right?
We already have this.
Absolutely want that.
Yeah, we absolutely want. I mean, people have asked for how can I tell my pod which family I want, and I think it's a pretty reasonable thing to ask for, actually.
I don't agree on that, and I have demonstrated that that doesn't work today. Because
Well, I mean,
the first thing that breaks is the service account, the default service. But
well,
networking point of view works. I mean, you want to have play with pods and IPs, it works. In the point of view on applications, it doesn't work. Unless you say, how do you identify your workload is one IP family only? And then if you
that's
land,
the real problem is if a pod says nothing and it gets both IPs, but it only listens on one family, we can't detect that. Right?
yeah, and then it's a scheduling problem then.
But if a pod has only one family, we're going to have this problem. If we allow for pods to say, I only want v6.
Yeah,
So are you saying we should just not do that?
Right. What I'm saying is it doesn't work. The first thing that breaks is how the pod auto discovery for the connecting with the API server is going to work.
Not to put words in Antonio's mouth, but a part of what he seems to be saying is who's going to do that work, right?
No. Well, today it doesn't work.
I don't see what connecting to the API server has to do with single stack pods.
Because if you have a Kubernetes.default and it's an IPv6 only, and you have an IPv4 only pods, those are not going to be able to get to the Kubernetes.
Don't do that then. Like if you're going to have an IPv4 only pod that needs to connect to your API server, then you need to make sure that your API server is serving on IPv4, right?
Yeah, but we are saying that we are having a cluster that have both families independently, right? That's what I'm saying.
We're eventually going to have to handle dual stack virtual API service. Like we're going to have to deal with that.
But the question is, why do you want to have this weird setup?
Because IPv4 IPs are expensive, and so you only want to have a handful of IPv4 nodes.
Yeah, and
I've requested that before.
But perhaps also the pod is an application, right? I write my application. I can be v6 specific. There's a lot of things I can do with v6 I cannot do in v4, but it probably has more to do with multi-networking than the single networking stack, all the use cases I really can think of. But I for sure, on a personal level, try to do everything in v6. And if I want to take my pod and then run it on someone else's infrastructure, then that might be v4 and v6, right? So
good point.
So, okay, but let's back to the thing. Let's assume that we have this cluster that has some nodes that are IPv4 only and some nodes that are IPv6 only, and other nodes that are dual stack. First, how do you solve the scheduling problem?
Node, I agree. Pod is different. If we're going to start having that the whole node is v4 only or v6 only, then I agree with you. It becomes a scheduling problem and it's sort of all sort of problems when you're going to schedule your API server. It can which nodes can it go on, and if you're on a v4 only node and you have v6 to connect to it, so if the node is v4 or v6 only, that I see as a problem. I think the node needs to be the basically the union of the payload that runs on it.
If you want to create some nodes that only have IPv4 and some nodes that only have IPv6, and you don't want your pods to be assigned IP addresses randomly, then you have to use node selectors on your pods. Like if you don't want node selectors on your pods, then don't have weird nodes.
Yeah, I think it's in that case better to do 2 clusters and figure it out.
That's where I'm going. Is you need to add all this burden on the customer and then just deploy 2 clusters.
So, like I said, I have no problem with saying that my pods are, but if someone says the node is, then I have a hard time seeing how that would work.
The other thing is all the weirdness. I mean, if you have control of the applications, I completely agree with all of you. You can make it work.
Yeah.
But the result is people is going to do this Helm chart from whatever thing and is going to use Erlang or whatever that only listening in one IP and lands in the node that is the IP family that doesn't this.
So
that's why they have Matic 4 for. The other way is harder.
Maybe we need to have a bigger discussion about what are the modalities that we really want to support and what are the use cases for it, instead of talking about specific individual features like, should we have dual stack API server? Should we have dual stack node ports? Should we have, like, do we want to support the case that you said, where some nodes are v4, some nodes are v6, or some pods are v4 and some pods are v6? That is an open issue, right? I forget what issue number it is, but somebody asked a long time back, can I specify in my pod which IP family I want? Allow it for services.
Prepare something for the summit. I mean, it's just 5 months away, or is it 4 months even?
But remember that when we implemented dual stack, we how is the word in English? We added dual stack IPs to pods without knowing, right? The pods were dual stacked for 2 or 3 releases until the services were. And then we realized, it was Lars, I think. The IP's order doesn't match the services. What I'm trying to say is that we don't have any control on the IP assignment, and people were using dual stack pods on the CNI, and we were reporting these pods without even knowing. So thinking in we can do it, but it's worth it. I mean, it's really the problem that people have. Solves any problem to have all these?
Well,
I mean,
let's put it this
number
way.
of nodes?
Is there a philosophical objection, or is there only practical objections? Like, if it was easy to do, would we object to doing it? Is the first question. The second question is, if it's not easy, would we object to somebody else doing it and us just accepting it? And then the third question is any of us going to step up to do it?
Well, and the other thing is that while we don't have a way to decide to make a pod be either single stack or dual stack within Kubernetes itself, a CNI plugin could decide to do that. And we absolutely support that. You can have a cluster that has single stack pods and aggregate them into a dual stack service right now. You just can't make it a external traffic policy local load balancer.
Yeah, I agree. So pods I can understand on the application side, but if you start doing the nodes, then things like etc, you have one v4 based and one v6 based, and then you need to talk to each other through a dual stack node that will do some sort of conversion between the protocols, right? Sort of proxy it just becomes no. So I think the cluster itself needs to have at least one common IP service. I mean, or IP family.
Yeah, that's the nice thing. With primary IP family, we solve all the problems.
Yeah.
So,
but I agree. It sounds like we need a philosophical discussion here.
So should we repose the questions Tim posed on the issue and then continue the discussion with those questions posed asynchronously?
Tim's questions were higher level than this issue. Like, once Tim's questions are answered, like, this issue and, potentially many others are answered, I think.
Okay. So what are we going to do right now?
Is there an issue linked specifically, Dan? I missed. There you go.
There is, but it's it's specifically about the help check node ports for dual stack services, which we can discuss it there, I guess. But
create a new one and hold this one. I mean, go with your proposal that says that no, it has to be the same for now, and then figure it out.
I'll go find the issue that is pod requesting certain families, and I'll ask the questions there, and we can maybe have the conversation there. Is that good?
That's for the props thing?
Well, I mean, if we allow it for pods, then we have to allow it for probes, and we have to allow it for node ports. Like it's a cascade.
Yeah, the only thing that I want to say is happy H balls is broken. I mean, everything that depends on raising which IP family answers first is broken.
This is entirely independent of whether any individual service is single stack or any individual pod is single stack or dual stack. The question is, if people want to make things where they are happy with the fact that there's only single stack connectivity in some places, do we support that?
We are talking about okay. The problem is that nobody is going to have IPv6 only connectivity.
That's not
theoretically true. That's the end game for all of them.
That's not true.
Yeah, but
I run it every day.
Bet.
Let's say 99% of the people.
Okay.
Don't be so pessimistic, Antonio.
Look, I'm the most fan of IPv6, and I'm the person that I'm more frustrated with the situation. But I mean, I'm a realistic person. The other day, we were trying to do something and we couldn't SSH just because I didn't have IPv6 in my place. So I had to turn on IPv4. So things like that, right?
Yeah.
Dan says in chat, 2024 is the year of IPv6 on Linux.
on the Linux and the desktop.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 2004, but I agree with you.
Remember that IPv6 is just about the only family that exists in China. And China is a pretty good market for some business.
Yeah, same in India.
Yeah, but the question is if you make the decision of saying, okay, what Dan is proposing there, is that feasible? It's not going to
I mean, to say that you should, I mean, so in reality, having a v6 only fabric and everything is in and all the services is v6, you can still, if you put on a DNS 6.4 and a NET 6.4, right, talk to v4 things on the outside, no problem. It works perfect. The problem is if you have a mix, so if you have a dual stack nodes and then you want to have applications of specific types and you want them to talk, well, then you have band salad, right? It just won't work. But why would you want to deploy applications that can talk to each other? They can't talk to each other when they're running on different systems. So why would they try to talk to each other when on the same system? They might not even know which system they're on, right?
Well, what's the previous discussion about having pods with IPv4 only and pods with IPv6 only? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but it was also the node. I think pods, fine. Nodes, no. Nodes has to be either v4, v6, or dual. And so there had to be the union of the pods that are scheduled on the whole system. So if you have some v4 pods, some dual stack, and some v6 pods, all the nodes need to be 4 and 6. That's my take on it as it is now, at least. But because otherwise, I think Kubernetes will have a big problem keeping its internal state cohesive. If there are nodes that can't talk to each other without having a proxy in the middle.
Someone's got some background noise. If you can mute, I don't know who it is.
Anybody have a proposal on what we do to continue following up on this?
I'll cross-reference the pod IPs thread and this node ports thread, and we can at least argue it in a written place.
Roger that. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your thoughts. I am very interested to follow up on that thread. Actually, that wasn't like sarcasm or anything. Mache, you want to talk about the multi-network repository proposal?
Yeah, folks. Last time I think we mentioned that we want to move forward with the CRD approach for the multi-networking. So this is the kind of follow-up steps. I would like to get an approval in this meeting, or let's say, or correct this, to kind of create the repositories for us to move forward. I'm requesting 2 repositories because the API, basically, that's kind of self-explanatory. The controllers, we want to kind of create as well components that will be generic for the multi-networking support. Currently, just managing the API object, probably maybe some common layer that will allow us to maybe interconnect with whatever we're going to decide on the kubelet side, whether it's going to be NRI, some sort of NRI to CNI translator, hand waving here. And then in the future, basically controllers, for example, we want to support services or gateway API. So we'd like to have like endpoint slice controller for multi-networking rather than tweak the in-core one. So that is the kind of reasoning behind the second repository as well. Thoughts? Disagreement? If not, then can I get an approval, and then I can update those comments that I get approval from SIG Networking and move forward with this.
I think it's fairly well understood that Kubernetes SIGs is a place for people to collaborate on ideas of various levels of confidence. So it seems appropriate.
Right.
+1.
How to do that? Should that we just note it in the notes, or can someone from here update these requests? What will be the next steps here?
Go to the description and say discuss it in the network meeting, blah blah blah, and in the doc, and that's enough.
All
because the GitHub admin people then go and read the description when they have the approvals and.
Okay, we'll do that. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good. All right, that's it. So it looks like we are going to get to adjourn a little early today. Nobody else added anything to the agenda. Thank you all for your time, and we will see you next time.
Take care.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Cheers.
See you in Kepland.